Hi guys, it's Grant Nelson again here with the Mustache Off-Grid YouTube channel. In case you're new to the channel, I cover various off-grid and homesteading topics, and I live off-grid in southern Missouri, and I don't use any public utility hookups or anything like that. So today I just wanted to make another video. I do a weekly talk show every Tuesday about different topics and kind of just ramble a little bit for you guys. So I'll get into it today. First thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is when you go off grid, um, I've noticed lately there's a lot of people that have been going off grid and have not been successful. And give you an example, I was talking with my neighbors recently, and they were talking with some people. They went to buy some chicken wire from some people, and they were living off grid, and they were having a hard time. They didn't have a car, and they didn't have, they were living in a horse trailer that they had put, they didn't do anything with the horse trailer, just a regular horse trailer, and they had no water, and, you know, they were probably 15 minutes from town, but they had no water, and that's 10-20 miles to town, and they were paying $25 or $50 to get a ride to town. So as far as it goes going off grid, I know we probably, I hear stories like that, but also you probably heard the story, maybe some of you guys might have heard the story of the family in Colorado that went off grid in the winter, and they ended up freezing to death out in Colorado. They tried to heat themselves in the wintertime with a bunch of candles. They didn't have enough firewood cut, and they froze to death out there. And I think there was a New York Times article on it. Most of the big news stations covered this story. And to me, it really seemed like a hit piece on off-grid. But I understand the importance of covering it and why they were talking about the dangers of it, because it can be dangerous if you don't have critical thinking skills and you're not prepared. You're not in a place that mentally and physically, and I think spiritually as well, that you are prepared to go off grid. As far as it goes, a lot of times people get together out here and we're talking about the state of the world and, you know, things like that. And it seems to me like the critical thinking skills are lacking in society today. And, you know, I'll just outright say it. It seems like there's a lot of stupidity, and sometimes people are doing some stuff that is just dumb. You know, and I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. I could sugarcoat it all I want, but that I could say, well, it's a low IQ move, but it'd be the saying the same thing. The point that I'm getting at is, I think our attention spans in society are changing. Most people are watching short form videos for entertainment instead of reading books, and I've never got better information on any video that I've ever watched than I've gotten from a book. I've watched some videos that were helpful, but I've never got as quality and as down to the wire information as I've gotten from books. The information's just a lot better, and there's a lot more of it that's missing in a lot of videos. That being said, I'm just saying our critical thinking skills are lacking in society today, it almost seems like to me. I don't know if it's our attention span, if people are in a trance with all their electronics, but it seems like the attention spans are lacking a little bit, and I've noticed this, like the people in Colorado that went off grid, they had no wilderness experience, and they had only watched YouTube videos on going off grid. You know, I think my YouTube channel probably has some good content to help someone go off grid and give you a base, but I think that you need to be able to critically think as well and read a book. And truthfully, I've noticed, you know, not to, I guess personally, I've traveled around the country, I'm originally from Illinois. I lived in Arizona for a few years, and then I moved out here. And people are different everywhere you go. And there is a complete change of culture in the urban environment compared to the rural environment. And truthfully, if you grew up rural or you grew up on a farm, um, or maybe you do some construction, things like that, I think you have a great advantage going off grid. I really do, because um, you have some of the knowledge already that you need, some of those critical thinking skills that are required to go off grid. An example of critical thinking, okay, just very baseline. Yesterday I didn't go, my chainsaw, a bolt in my chainsaw came out and I lost it and it's gone. But I had an old 35cc chainsaw in my building over there. They don't sell those bolts individually. I could have ran the town and bought a new chainsaw, or brought it to a chainsaw repair shop, or tried to order the part online. But I thought about the situation for a few minutes. I went and got that 35cc saw that I had in my shed that doesn't really run well, and I'll never use it for anything. But I started taking it apart and looking to see if there was a bolt that would fit, and I found one that fit. It was too long, so what I did was I cut it down. I took some metal cutters and I cut the bolt down. I could have grinded it off, but the metal cutters just worked well for that bolt. But that's an example of critical thinking, being able to come up with a solution instead of just making an emotional and rash decision and running the town and spending money. I made an adjustment and I found a solution to the problem. And I think sometimes that's lacking, because in society, especially I guess in urban society, as I was talking about, um, everything's just right there. You get your food from Walmart, your water comes from Walmart or whatever store you shop at. And your shelter is, rent or mortgage usually. Some people might own their house in town, but um, all those things come from somewhere else, and everything's at the flip of a switch and the push of a button, and our attention spans are changing because we want everything fast, and we aren't thinking critically what options are available. And sometimes there's an option to go and get a big machine. There's an option to do it with your own two hands, or there's an option to, there might be another option, but I don't have another one that I can think of this second. But there's usually a manual option and an automated option, and usually the automated option costs more money. But cost benefit analysis, it just seems like our attention spans and critical thinking are changing, just because we live in a I guess I've heard people say microwave society. And if you're going out to the land to homestead and you've never lived on a farm, never lived rurally, never done any construction or building, or maybe even mechanical work might have helped in some situations, you're gonna have a big learning curve. And I've talked with people, when we get together and talk, it seems like it's almost like when I talk with certain people that I know that it's like it's like talking to a little kid, the learning curve, because someone that's been doing something 5 to 10 years or longer, even 1 year, has so much more knowledge than someone that's never done it before. And I try to educate, and I try to make this channel for beginners to try to help someone get a base to start on. But all I'm saying is, if you're going to go off grid, there's a lot of critical thinking required. Make sure you plan it thoroughly and think about what you're doing. Don't make it an emotional and rash decisions, and don't just run the town for everything right away. Think about it for a minute before you run the town. And the other thing about it too is, I'm not saying running a town can't be a solution, but I'm saying that you need to think about, do you really need to go there, or are you just trying to take the fastest and easiest option and pay some money for it? Another thing too, talking about planning and critical thinking. When you go out to the land, you really need to get yourself in a frontier mindset. You're going out there, raw land, and you're going to turn it into something, just like the settlers back in the 1800s. And when you're doing that, this is all opinion. Everything I'm saying in the video, guys, is opinion. But when you're doing that, you need to start with food, water, and shelter. And the easiest ones to start with, the easiest ones that you can check off, are shelter and water. And you shouldn't even worry about food until you have water. And you can go to the store and get food or buy in bulk, but you need to make sure that you have your shelter taken care of first, and then get your water taken care of, or vice versa. There's a lot of options for water, but generally speaking, you need to figure that out, because and you need to have your shelter option ready for wintertime. If you go out to raw land and you're in a region that has hard winters, you need to realize, hey, I've got this building here, maybe I need to insulate it, put in a wood stove. When I first came out to the land, I was staying in a tent in my car if it rained and stuff, but I had ordered my shed to come, and I said, okay, I said that the shelter is checked off for the winter. When that shed gets here, I'm going to put insulation in it, and I'm going to put a wood stove in it. And that's exactly what I did. So I was preparing for wintertime. And when the people went out on the frontier, they had to prepare for winter. They had to cut wood. They had to get things ready for winter. They had to clean the chimney out. And there's always some preparation for winter, which I'm actually doing a lot of stuff right now, getting my food ready, getting my firewood cut, just different things I'm working on right now. But you need to prepare for wintertime when you go out there. And it may come to a point, you need to also, when you're preparing for winter, you need to have a plan when you first come out there on where you need to get to be prepared for winter. But you also need to have a backup plan for wintertime. Because if you go out there and you're not ready for winter, and winter comes, and there's negative temperatures coming in, and you're not prepared for it, you're going to be in a situation that's dangerous. And you don't have to be in that situation, and that's why I'm saying you need to have a backup option. And I'm talking about you might have to go to town and rent something for a few months through the wintertime if you don't get to a point that you can stay on your land. You might have to do that, or you might have to go stay with a family member or something through the winter. But you need to be real with yourself, and if negative temperatures come in and you're not ready for it, you really need to think about, hey, should I be putting myself in this situation? It's your right to put yourself in that situation, but at the same time, I just think it's critical thinking. It's obviously, anyone that was looking from the outside, at that kind of a situation would tell you, hey, that you should really not be doing that. But usually, sometimes pride gets in the way a little bit with certain things, and we're all guilty of it. But I'm just saying that you need to critically think when you go out to your land, what needs to get done so that you can make it through that first winter. Now, part of the reason that I actually picked the Ozarks is because I thought about that ahead of time. And I said, hey, the Ozarks have mild winters. They have an average winter temperature of 40 degrees. We do hit 0 a couple times at night, but generally speaking, they have very mild winters here, which was part of why I picked it, because I realized that that's a big advantage having a longer growing season, warmer weather, and shorter winter, um, as far as it goes. And the winter is very mild. I realize that the importance of that. That's why a lot of people actually fail going off grid, because they go off grid in a place like Michigan or Minnesota or Alaska, Arctic tundra, like the people in Colorado. And they can't stay there through the winter. They're just not ready for that. Not saying it can't be done, or that there isn't people that make it work and get it done, because there is some people that are successful. But I'm just saying you really need to take that seriously, and you also need to have a backup plan how to get out of there, if your plan fails. And be honest with yourself. Am I to a point that I can stay through negative 30-degree temps on my property? I'm not saying that you can't stay there. I'm just saying that the point is, I'm saying that you should have a backup option if you're not ready for it, especially that first year going out there. If you're not to the point that you're ready for winter, be honest with yourself. I don't want anyone putting themselves in a dangerous situation, but it's your right to do so if you want to. Talking about the critical thinking and, sometimes pride getting in the way. I've seen that often with people that have a plan. You start a plan yourself, and you have to adjust that plan because it's not working. And maybe you talk with some other people around, and they give you some different ideas, and some of those ideas might be really good ideas, but you're not willing to change it just because it's not your idea. And one person I've noticed that's really good at taking feedback from outside of the their own mind and their own plans is Elon Musk. I'm not a huge fan of him or anything, but logically, it's a lot of people that are very logical and critically think have trouble taking recommendations from other people. And I'm guilty of it too. I think we all are, but at the same time, it's a skill to be able to hear stuff from other people and say, that's a lot better idea than the one that I have. It's a humble thing, but I think it's important to be able to critically think, plan out what you're doing, your food, water, and shelter and water should definitely be first, probably shelter first. If you're going to make it through winter, you're going to need some good winter shelter. Just think about that, critically think. Food, water, shelter and water should be the first things you take care of on your homestead. Whether it's setting up a large water catch, or ordering a shed or a camper with propane heat, whatever you're planning on doing, make sure you're ready for winter. Maybe it's buying some extra blankets, buying some extra jackets. Make sure you're ready for that when you go out there. The other thing that I was going to say is, once you get those things set up, as far as once you get your water set up, you can start producing food. You can start raising livestock, rabbits for meat or chickens for eggs. And it's easy to start that, but it's irresponsible in my mind to get those animals before you have a good water supply. So that's something to really think about. Get your water set up so that you can have some animals to raise, to eat on your homestead. They aren't for show, as far as it goes. They're food, their meat, their milk, and their eggs for me. And they also provide fertilizer and pelts and things like that if it comes down to it. Get your water set up so that you can raise your food, and also you can water your garden and things like that as well. But you're going to also need it for drinking, obviously. And if you're not to a point that you can raise your food yet, you can buy it in town. But you need to be to a point that you have shelter and water, and make sure that first winter, that should really be what you're working towards, is a goal to be able to make it through that first winter. on your property. And I've been down here 2 winters now, so I've gotten you know, adjusted to things and learned things, and I've gotten a lot better. My first winter I didn't have water set up quite yet, but I did have my building set up with insulation and everything, and my neighbors were nice enough to let me fill up my jugs at their pumps, so that's what I used the first winter. And I didn't have any animals the first year because I was just more prepared on getting my place set up to make it through the winter. So, you know, critical thinking, think about what you're doing. Don't make emotional decisions. Don't just go out to some land because you're fearful of the state of the world. Go out there and enjoy it. You know, make it yours, buy some land, and, you know, build some generational wealth and some joy to yourself. But critically think things through. Work on your critical thinking. Work on your attention span, you know, if you're going out there. I think truthfully it kind of just being out here helps work on your attention span. The more you disconnect from all the electronic gizmos and gadgets, and you know, you start reading and things like that, which is what they used to do for entertainment and stuff back in the day, you tend to just kind of get out of that trance that those electronics have you in, almost, it seems like to me. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about critical thinking off-grid. You know, a little bit about that because I've noticed it's kind of a problem. Some people just go out to the land with no plan. Another thing I would say, make sure you walk on the land before you buy it. Before you give anyone any money, you should walk on the land. You can make an offer, but before you give anyone any money, make sure you walk on the land. Another thing too, I was going to talk a little bit about building off-grid. You're going to always be building stuff out here. Whether it's repairing things, building new structures, you're going to be consistently improving it. And if you've never built anything, that might be a good place to start because it's going to cost you probably 10 times as much if you're not building stuff yourself. For example, I built that building right there. I built the smokehouse right there. I've got some chicken coops and things up there, some sheep barns. But you're going to have to build stuff when you first go out there to the land. And if you don't learn anything from this video, this is going to be the simplest thing. And some of the viewers are probably going to say, well, everyone knows that, but not everyone does know it. Believe me. This is a waffle head hammer. That's what we call them on the construction sites. And if you get one with a flat face, it's a roofing hammer. And the roofing hammers, you cannot pound nails or build structures like this as easily. You're going to bend over a lot of nails. It's not as efficient. And if you're going out to the land and you're planning on building structures, make sure that you have the right type of hammer. Probably 2 of them, honestly. It's probably good to have 2 hammers. But anyway, that's just something to know. If you're going to go out to the land, maybe building something in your backyard might be a good start. Maybe you build a smokehouse in your backyard in town. Maybe it's something that you plan to bring with you off-grid, a shed or something like that for storing stuff. But build something, you know, if you don't know how to build anything. That's the best way to learn, is to build stuff. So just keep that in mind as well. Learning those skills before you go out to the land. If you're coming from an urban environment, that's going to be important to learn some skills before you come out to the land. If you've never done any of this stuff, there's going to be a large learning curve. I'm not saying you can't get over that learning curve, but a lot of it's learning by doing, but you do need to be knowledgeable on some of the things that you're going to at least need to know. The other thing that I would say is, you know, when I was talking about the difference between the urban and the rural kind of cultures, you know, when I travel around or when I talk with different people, and there's certain things out here that are just farm kids and people that are raised on a farm or grew up on a farm or lived rurally, people just know. Like, for example, you know, I there's just a different, there's some things that would shock people in the city. For example, hunting a deer, might shock someone, but that's common knowledge. In the rural communities, that's common for people to hunt and stuff. I'm not saying people in the cities don't hunt, but it's less common than it is in rural environments. Um, and you start at a young age. I remember at school, first day of deer season was like a national holiday, basically, as far as it goes in the rural communities up in Illinois. And the other thing that I was going to say is the, uh, like, for example, when I talk about a shock when you first come out here, I've raised sheep growing up my whole life, so I have a lot of knowledge on sheep. And there's a time that when a ewe is lambing, once in a while one will throw their uterus. And what I mean by that is it'll literally push their uterus out of their uh, behind, basically, and it'll come out and it'll be on the ground. And that sheep will die if you don't put that back in. So there's this bloody uterus on the ground, and you have to pick it up, clean it. You usually put it in a bucket of hot water and clean it. And then you have to literally take that thing and you have to take your arm and you have to push it back up into the ewe. And she's pushing against you because she's contracting. And it's all just bloody, blood everywhere. And once you get the uterus back into the ewe, you have to put a ewe spoon in there to hold it in for a couple days, or she'll push it right back out. And sometimes you have to sew that actually into the skin to keep that ewe alive. Otherwise, it just dies. So things like that. If you've never raised animals, you're going to have to deal with death. I had my video that I talked about dealing with death on the homestead. There's just some things that you're going to have to do that require some grit, I guess you would say. But that used to just be the way of life, and it still is in a lot of rural places somewhat. But when people went out to the frontier in the 17 and 1800s, those kind of things, hunting, livestock, building stuff, they were just common knowledge. Everyone knew how to do it. They were taught it from the age they were 5 years old. They were taught it. And just something to realize, guys, our society's changed a lot, but if you're going out to the land, you need to get yourself in a frontier mindset and really explore, some of the skills you might need. And also, I would say, try to wrap this up here. I try to keep the videos less than a half hour, but if you guys want them longer, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, if you're going out to a rural environment, one thing that is hard to do, you might have a few neighbors around, and I'm talking about this culture change. Don't bring your trash from the city out to the rural environments. There's probably a reason you're moving out to a rural environment, and it's probably because you want to get away from some of the socialist policies in the cities and some of the regulations and some of the, I would say, abominations going on in the cities. As far as it goes, if you're moving out to a rural environment, every place, the culture's different. On the West Coast, it's different. In the South, it's different. In the Midwest, it's different. Don't go in there trying to change everything for those people that live there, or they're going to get they're going to be very disappointed. And you're not going to have friendly neighbors if you come in there and you're trying to push your city stuff on them. It's just the way it is. And I think that that's why I get along so well with my neighbors, because I came out here to be like them, not to be like it was when I lived in Tempe, Arizona. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a ramble, but be respectful when you come out there. Don't try to go in there and change everyone's stuff and start wanting the road blacktopped and causing a bunch of issues with the neighbors. Be respectful to people. Don't go around suing your neighbors and being like that kind of a person. Go out to your land, be respectful to your neighbors, be good to your neighbors, and love your neighbors, just like the Bible says. That's just off topic, but I think it'll help you a lot if you're going off grid. Make sure that when you go out there that you're not trying to change everything and pushing stuff on people that have lived there their whole lives, or they're really not going to like that. Anyway, I'll get off that, guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless y'all, and thank you for watching.